On October 14th, 2025, Microsoft will end support for Windows 10, 10 years after it was first released. That way, Windows 11 would remain as the only supported edition of Windows. At first, not all that much will be different, but the system will get more and more outdated over time. Let's look at what that brings with it and what to do about it. The main point of a Windows edition losing support is that, well, Microsoft won't provide any support for it, and there will be no more updates, no added features, no security improvements, bug fixes, or compatibility improvements. This would leave the system outdated and vulnerable to attacks and malware as time goes on. There is the Extended Security Updates program that will give you a few more years of official support for Windows 10, but that's going to get increasingly pricey. And there are talks that European Union residents like me are eligible for 1 year of these updates for free. At some point, programs would start to end support for it. Let's look at Windows 7 as an example, which had its end of life 5 years ago. The last edition of Firefox web browser to work on it is the extended support release version 115, which is specifically supported up until early next year. Currently we're at 143, with 140 being the latest ESR. Steam also doesn't run on 7 since the start of 2024. For Paint.net, the image editor, they stopped supporting it with a 5.0 release in 2023. For additional support and functionality, you'd have to install community add-ons. If you plan on continuing to use Windows 10 past the end of support, you can do it, you just have to be a little more careful when using the internet. A good idea would be to install a better supported antivirus. Try to use up-to-date software as much as you can. So, just make sure the other layers of security are still there. You are to keep yourself safe. After a while, at some point, you'd have to find a way around for using some software, which aren't officially supported anymore. Now, where to go from Windows 10? The intended strat by Microsoft is switching to Windows 11, perhaps by upgrading your existing Windows 10 installation or by doing a clean install. If your device doesn't support Windows 11, just buy a new computer. However, the system requirements for it are rather high, which is also a problem for a lot of enterprise computers, all of which seemingly are out of date and must be replaced. That's expensive and would create plenty of e-waste. Windows 11 has a nicer look I definitely prefer and some new features, but the system is criticized for high requirements, lack of customization, and privacy concerns. There definitely are people who will go back to Windows 7 now, but simply for being even more out of date, I can't recommend it here. There is the end of 10 movement going on currently that's about giving new life to old computers impacted by the end of life, helping you install Linux. Switching to Linux is a real alternative. Installing and basic use of it is actually usually pretty simple, though it does take some learning going forward. My distro recommendations. Linux Mint is widely supported. It is really easy to set up and has a lot of graphical software for management. It has a traditional desktop layout, familiar to Windows users. The desktop interface is kind of bland in my opinion, and it is quite slow moving in terms of software updates, being based on long-term edition of Ubuntu, so it's not the flashiest in my eyes, but I can see it being a solid option. Kubuntu is a spin on Ubuntu with a powerful KDE desktop environment. That's a graphical interface and matching suite of programs. I find it better to use than plain Ubuntu. The next ones I find are a step up from the beginner distros, so they may need a little more setting up, but they seem more powerful. Fedora is a distro that provides recent, updated software. While it is not part of the Debian Ubuntu family, it is also quite common and supported. You can pick a desktop environment and interface of your choice when downloading it. Debian is what Ubuntu is based on, having a lot of support that way. A lot of software is on it and plenty of options for configuration. Debian puts focus on stability in the sense that it could be used for a long time without any real changes. That leads to a few quirks in software management. There are development repositories for more recent software. Use them at your own risk. Debian is a good choice for servers for added reliability and stability. So Windows 10 can still be used for some time with caution, but the way forward will be to either install Windows 11 or some Linux distribution. I am Median Lane. If you enjoy, you can perhaps like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time, so goodbye.